Stop memorizing, stop looking shit up, and just start reading your tarot cards. If that sounds good to you, keep watching.
Welcome to the Happy as Annie YouTube channel. Let's talk about tarot.
Today's video is getting right to it. If you own a deck of tarot cards, then you can start reading tarot cards right now. I've been reading tarot cards for years now, and I still look stuff up when I want a second opinion, when I'm a little confused, or I want to hear someone else's take on things. But for the most part, stop treating tarot cards like flashcards that you have to memorize the meanings of. Read tarot cards like you're reading a picture book. That's what we're going to practice today. I don't know if you've seen my previous videos, but in one of them I mentioned that I'm an English professor, which means reading comes up a lot in my discussions with my students. What I constantly hear from people, and what I even remember about myself, is a great analogy for how some people are approaching reading tarot. So when you're a kid, you probably read the same picture books over and over again at bedtime. And when we don't quite know how to read yet, what do we tend to do as children? We kind of memorize the story and then fake it, right? We look at the picture and we pretend we're reading because we've memorized what we think the picture is supposed to say. That's what I always think of when I hear all these people trying to memorize the meanings of cards. Learning how to read isn't memorizing every single word in the English language. It's about putting together the pieces and prior knowledge you have and making new meaning out of it. That's exactly how reading tarot should be. This video is in two parts. In part one, we're going to practice describing what we see. I know it sounds a little silly and basic, but I promise you it's not, because a lot of people shy away from just telling me what the hell they see in the card, and they just run to a guidebook or a website right away. In part two of today's video, I'm going to talk about how keeping the question in mind will help you interpret cards yourself without having to resort to looking stuff up. Let's start with some easier cards. Here's the first card, the Nine of Swords. What do you see in this card? Feel free to pause me to shut me up and talk through it yourself. You can journal on it, whatever works for you. So in the Nine of Swords, we see a guy sitting up in bed. The backdrop is black, which makes me think it's nighttime. He's holding his face. It looks like this guy had a nightmare, right? He's having a hard-ass time. He's afraid of something. He's worried about something. He's losing sleep. Just the gut feeling we get from pulling this card makes us think, ugh, things ain't going so well. That's it. We just did it. This card comes up. Your interpretation is something's not quite sitting right. You're feeling a lot of anxiety about something. Perhaps you're losing sleep over something. You're worried that something isn't going to work out, or you feel like you don't know what to do. Did I run to a guidebook? No. Did I have to go to biddytarot.com and look something up? No. We just described what we see in the card, and that's pretty spot on. Let's do another pretty straightforward one. The Ten of Cups. Go ahead and pause me if you want to journal or talk to yourself about what you see in this card. We see a happy family in a glorious, beautiful setting. Right away, I see that big ass rainbow at the top of the card. Rainbows are signs of peace, love, and harmony. That couple is holding each other close, gloriously surveying their home. The children, I don't know if you had siblings, but my sister and I were never that happy together. They're holding hands, dancing, laughing. Just by describing what we see, what's the interpretation of this card? There's so much happiness and love in your life. There is peace, beauty, and harmony coming your way. You have so much to be grateful for. Things are looking real good for you. If you had to memorize keywords, this would just be a blue card and it would say peace and harmony or something like that. Why would Pamela Coleman Smith, the illustrator for this deck, have gone through all this beautiful trouble? The images are there to help you use them. Now let's do a couple, I think, medium level cards. I think these add an extra step or layer of interpretation that make them a little more complicated than, say, the Nine of Swords or the Ten of Cups. Here's the first one. The Strength card. If you're a Leo, here's your card. If you want to learn more about the associations with Zodiac and Tarot, let me know in the comments below. That'd be a great future video. So again, describe what you see. In the Strength card, we have a woman and a lion. We know from prior knowledge, lions are big, scary, ferocious carnivores, right? So why is this dainty lady in her beautiful white gown and her floral belt and headdress all up in this lion's face? Why isn't the lion ripping her face off? So that's where the extra layer comes in. We described what we saw, but now we need to say, okay, well, what does this mean? Why is this happening? Okay, this woman is an example of strength. She's holding this lion's mouth open, and the lion just has its tongue out like an obedient, loving dog. And if you think about what we know about strength, brute force often comes to mind as kind of the obvious symbol of strength, right? This big, strong, tough guy has to wrestle this lion to its death. No. Here's a lady in a dress. And again, there are a lot of like obvious gender connotations in tarot. So, you know, you got to work with what you have. But this woman's strength is internal. It's graceful, it's elegant. Strength doesn't have to be brute force. So see how we had to do one extra step there? It wasn't just literally what do you see? We described what we saw and then we had to say, okay, so what is this picture trying to tell me? So the interpretation of this card is something like, oh, focus on your inner strength. Strong doesn't necessarily mean loud. It doesn't always mean brute force. You want to do another one? Here's a card I recently drew for myself, actually. The Seven of Pentacles. So what do we see in this card? And so what? Why is that happening? What does that picture tell us? Here's a man tending to his crops or tending to his garden. We know he's working because he has his, what is this, a hoe, a rake, something in his hand, right? So he's been kind of tilling the field or whatever, like all these agricultural terms I'm throwing out. I don't even know if I'm using them right, but work with me. So now he's admiring his crops. His crops have grown really high. They've grown really thick. And now he's like, hell yeah, look at my crops. I did well. Here are the fruits of my labor. Now, again, like we did with the Strength card, we kind of have to be like, okay, so what does this mean? What prior knowledge do we have? So let's talk about farming and gardening. Does that shit grow right away? No, that takes months. It takes patience. It takes skill. It's not gonna happen overnight. But look, if you keep at it and do your thing, you'll be successful and you'll reap the rewards of your labor. And that's what this card is saying. And finally, let's do a couple of what I call difficult cases. Now, this is always funny because what I think is difficult might be super obvious to you, but I'm just gonna show you a couple of the cards that really stumped me at first and that I still sometimes look up because I have no idea what it means in a spread. And that's totally fine. Here's the first one. The Wheel of Fortune. In fact, the other card I'm going to show you, and most of my difficult cards are Major Arcana cards, and I kind of don't think that's a coincidence because the Major Arcana cards are more abstract and huge messages. So let me know if you think the Major Arcana are harder to deal with too. Okay, so back to this Wheel of Fortune. Again, let's describe what we see and then try to make sense of it. The giant wheel in the center is probably where our focus goes first. So the Wheel of Fortune means luck, uncertainty, the turning of fate. Sometimes we're on top, like this Sphinx guy, and sometimes we're at the bottom, like this kind of devilish character. Okay, There's some symbols on there that mean something, but that I don't know off the top of my head. And then there are some things in the corner of this card. It's some figures, and they're all reading a book. I noticed the book is blank, but that makes me think, okay, a blank book. Nobody knows what the future holds. The Wheel of Fortune, mysterious, right? So what? Like, what do we do with this if it comes up in a reading? Perhaps it means a turning of your luck. If you feel like you're at the bottom today, don't worry, because that wheel's turning and something great is coming to you soon. The reverse can also be true. Things are going really well for you now, but keep in mind that Wheel of Fortune can turn at any time. So maybe you need to start planning for the future. Maybe you need to prepare for a rainy day, or maybe you need to take stock of everything you have and really feel grateful for what you have and not take it for granted, because that Wheel of Fortune might get you in a negative way. You want to do one more? The Hierophant. This is actually my life card. In numerology, when you take your birth date and add up the digits, it gets you a life number, and mine is 5. If you're a 5, let me know in the comments below. Or if you don't know how to do that, let me know and I can link you to something, or I can do a future video for you too. Okay, so the Hierophant. This is another tricky one for people. So let's describe what we see first. There's obviously some religious figure in the center. We can tell because of the crosses on his little sash thing. It looks like he's in a church. We see these big ornate pillars. He's sitting on a big thing. There's a big crown. I grew up in an Armenian Orthodox church, so this is a very familiar sight for me. If you're a Catholic or something like that, you understand this sight right away. Okay, what else is going on? So there are two, they're called supplicants in the tarot literature, if you want to look it up. Supplicants meaning, I'm such a nerd. Supplicants meaning followers, or people that kind of bow down or listen or are led by somebody. So I'm talking about those two kind of monk-looking guys at the bottom, right? They're kneeling down before this religious leader. They're listening to his sermon or coming to him for advice or instructions. And I love that pair of keys in front of the Hierophant. It's like he holds the keys to the mysteries of life, or he holds the keys to your spiritual or religious enlightenment or something like that. What does this mean if it comes up in a reading? Well, these people are going to a leader or mentor or teacher figure for advice. So maybe that's what this card is saying in a particular reading that it comes up in. You need a mentor. You need an advisor. Go to your elders. Go to someone more knowledgeable than you. And it doesn't have to be like, go to the priest. It could be, go to your therapist. Go to your grandmother. Talk to a professor you used to have. It could mean any kind of seeking of guidance from someone more knowledgeable. So see, that's why I think this is one of the hard ones, because it's a little cryptic. We can describe what we see though, and look at how many meanings we got just from looking at the picture. And for these cards, again, I'm not saying never look stuff up. I'm saying don't distrust yourself to the point where you're looking stuff up first. Do your research later. I still read about tarot card meanings because I'm a nerd and want to know everything I can. And that's totally fine, but you don't need to use the books as a crutch right away. The same card can come up for different questions and mean completely different things. Now, instead of that being confusing or overwhelming, it's actually a good thing. I have a story to share with you about this. So I belong to a few different Facebook groups devoted to tarot. So recently, someone shared a picture of like a 3-card spread they did. And the question they had asked their cards was, what is my soul's purpose? What is my calling in life? And the first card that came up in that spread for this person was the Hierophant. Now someone jumped in and said, ooh, fun, let me try interpreting this. Hierophant, okay, this means a Taurus man is entering your life soon, and so maybe you'll get a hot date. No, This person's asking about soul's purpose, about their life's work. What am I being called to do? This tarot reader's answer had nothing to do with the person's question. Help yourself out by keeping the question in mind so your interpretation of the card stays focused and makes sense to the person you're reading for, or to yourself if you mostly read for yourself like I do. So I want to go through a couple examples with you to show you how pulling the same exact card can mean completely different things based on the question being asked. Let's look at the Ten of Cups, which we talked about earlier. The Ten of Cups meaning can change based on the question asked. And your job as a tarot reader is to keep that question in mind so you can intuitively pick the right meaning. Here's question 1. What might I experience if I move across the country for this job? You ask that question and you get the Ten of Cups. What might that mean? I don't know about you, but that's a big green light for me. This might be my dream job. This might be the job that leads me to security and happiness and harmony. This could mean being able to take care of my family and enjoy each other's company, live in comfort, if not luxury. So what if you were to ask this question instead? What is holding me back from making progress? Wait, we obviously can't use the same interpretation, right? Your happiness and harmony is holding you back from success? That doesn't quite sound right. So let's look at the card again. Look at the picture we see and think, how could this be a bad thing? What do you think? This scene is goddamn near perfect, right? At least for a lot of people. And that word perfect, if you're like me, that's a bad word. So maybe that's what it means. What's holding you back is your perfectionism or your impossibly high standards. Nothing is good enough for you unless it looks like the Ten of Cups. Maybe you're too idealistic. It has to be puppies and rainbows and unicorns or it's bad. You guys want to do one more? This is the last one we're doing in this video. Let's bring back a card we already looked at. So let's say you ask, what is my soul's purpose? Ha! You guys thought I was done with that shit talking story, right? Let's think about it. What is my soul's purpose? And you get the Hierophant. The Hierophant is some kind of religious or spiritual leader. Here we see two people coming to the Hierophant for help. So your soul purpose might be to help people, to guide people, to teach, to lead them through life's difficulties, to make certain difficult or esoteric things easier for them to understand. But what if the question was something completely different? Let's say you asked, what is the future of my relationship with my girlfriend? And you get the Hierophant. Now suddenly it doesn't make sense to be like, you are a teacher, a leader. If I see this in a love reading and someone's asking about the future of a relationship, this is a church card, right? So maybe that means marriage. It's a very traditional card. So maybe that means traditional relationship. Y'all are gonna get married soon. Or maybe you should think about getting married. So see how the meaning completely changed based on the question? The question can help you. The question limits your focus. And that'll make you a better tarot reader without having to resort to memorizing keywords, which don't necessarily help you with different questions. And you don't have to run to a book or website right away. Give yourself time to think it through, because often your intuitive interpretation is going to be much richer and much more insightful than reading something from a book. We covered so much in today's video. If you have any comments or questions, I'd love to hear. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to this channel so you are notified of all the wonderful content coming your way soon. See you guys next time.